All right, we are starting with the depth drop. So this is probably the easiest of all of the altitude or depth drops that we're going to talk about with this series, as far as learning how to land in the correct position with the right intention. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. I think one of the biggest misconceptions that I hear pretty often is people think of the depth drop as more of a exercise or a drill to teach landing mechanics. They think it's about just figuring out how to interact with the ground, which it is to some degree. But really, what we're focusing on here is more. It's all about force. Okay, so how much force are you putting into the ground, and then vice versa, how much force is going through the body. So it's force absorption. Um, for a general rule of thumb, as far as height goes, um, I wouldn't start with jumping off your tailgate. Typically for men, I suggest 18 to 24-inch box, and then for female, 15 to 18 inches. Um, in an ideal world, you would know someone's rough estimate of their vertical max. Um, if you know how high someone can already jump, that's generally where you want to put that box height at. So if, let's say, you have a 26-inch vert, you want that box height to be somewhere right around 26 inches, plus or minus probably 2. Um, but that's a general starting point is going to be those numbers I said a second ago. So, like I said, it's real simple. I'll kind of walk you through it real fast. Basically, you're going to be up on your elevated surface, so whatever box you're using, you are stepping off. So, I mean, you can jump off if you want to get a higher displacement, how far you're actually dropping. But once again, that's going to factor into the amount of force. And if you want consistency with each rep, you're going to want to just keep it at a set height, so you're just stepping off the box rather than actually jumping. Um, what I like to think about when I'm landing is trying to have as much of the weight on the mid to forefoot as possible. Not to the point where I land in a calf raise position, but you don't want that heel smacking into the ground, okay? Because when you think about how the foot works, how it interacts with the ground, anyways, in sports, there's not a lot of time that you're spending with your weight shifted towards your heels, okay? You want to be able to support yourself with more weight towards the front half of the foot. So once again, more ball of the foot, front half, um, and the position as far as like where the hips, knees, everything are, that's gonna be determined by what the goal is. In general, I start off just teaching people in an athletic position. So what you think of typically gonna be a little bit of bend in the knees and the hips, nothing too crazy. You can obviously get lower, you can go higher. Um, it's not going to make a huge difference as far as the goal of the exercise, but it will affect. You got to think about every joint is at a different angle, so every muscle is at a different length. So it's probably a good idea to do a little bit in various stages, different positions, rather than always the same. But like I said, in general, starting out more just like your athletic position that you would teach anyways. Um, um, the biggest thing here is that when you make contact with the ground, you're actually hitting as hard as you can with the minimal amount of squish or collapse once you make contact with the floor. So what I mean by that is I'll show you, when your foot hits the ground, what I don't want to see is this. See how I made contact and then continued to sink into like a full squat position? So when you hit the ground and you have a lot of give, a lot of squish, a lot of movement after contact, you're basically just taking away the amount of force that's going through all that tissue. You're absorbing that force in a, I guess you could say, a more efficient way, but it's getting away from the purpose of the exercise. The purpose of the exercise is to have a large peak in force over a short period of time. So you want to land pretty firm. So I'll show you that one more time. The correct way, where I'm actually going to land and try to maintain that position even after contact. Okay? Okay, so you notice the difference. Once I make contact, there's probably a little bit of give. Maybe I hit the ground and dropped another inch or two. But beyond that, I mean, that's the goal. You're trying to keep it as minimal as possible. The less that you sink after contact, the higher the level of force. Okay, so pretty straightforward, nothing really too crazy. But that's all for now. We'll go ahead and move on to the next one.